Hello and welcome to a Business Minute with Lily Lopez, presented by the South Florida Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. With me today is Pete Sepp, who is the president of the National Taxpayers Union. He's been there for 38 years, he told me previously, and I was like so surprised because look at him, no gray hair, no nothing. He must have started as a 22-year-old young man. Like I always say, I started when I was 22, which is true. And so, Peter, I mean, you're a wealth of knowledge. I mean, gosh, doing this for so many years. And I have several questions for you. And I want to start by just mentioning that you're like, wow, super extremely qualified, and you could explain to us about the global drug pricing system and how it is. And me personally, I remember experiencing that my daughter once needed a medication that in the United States cost like about $1,000. And then my husband, coming from a trip, stopped in Spain and he said it was only $80. And then for us here, we live here, we don't understand the reasoning behind that. So I said, today with Pete, I'll be able to understand more so that our members and the viewers have an idea of why it is that drugs are so expensive in the United States versus other places like Latin America and Europe. So, Pete, welcome. Welcome to the Business Minute.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. Tell me about what do you think, what is the reasoning behind the cost of the drugs in the United States? They're so expensive. And versus like Europe, like I said previously, when we travel, it's not, you go to another country and it's not expensive at all. Do we subsidize because of the research, or what is it that the United States, we absorb the cost, or what is it that we do?
There are many, many reasons why you might encounter higher prices for prescription drugs here versus elsewhere in the world. One of them is the fact that so many of the drugs are developed here in the United States, and we shoulder such a huge burden
I
of the
thought,
research costs compared to other countries. When you take a look at the average development cycle for a blockbuster prescription drug,
Mhm.
one that provides cures for millions of people. The average cost is about 1.3 billion with a B dollars, more than 10
Whoa.
years of development.
Oh,
And so then you wonder, well, who is shouldering all of those costs? Surely not just the United States. Well, not just the United States, but primarily the United States.
Maryland.
When you take a look at the interesting studies out there about how other countries' healthcare systems essentially free ride off our own, you begin to understand why we're always the ones who seem to get stuck with the bill. There's a group called No Patient Left Behind, which conducted very complex calculations of the purchasing power of other countries relative to ours, the costs of common drugs in other countries relative to ours. And it turns out that in most developed countries, especially in Europe, they
Yeah,
are paying about 30% of the price that we do for the same types of drugs when they ought to be able to pay on a purchasing power basis 74%, more than twice as much. That's the free riding margin
right.
between the actual costs of the drug, including the research and the development and the regulatory costs and the tax costs and all of that. Europe and other developed
Right.
countries should be paying more than twice as much of
Agree.
what they are now for
Mhm.
our drugs that are developed here. Why does that
Why
occur?
doesn't that happen?
Yeah, a lot of reasons. For one, there's something called compulsory licensing, meaning that drug manufacturers based here in the United States are required to offer their products at very, very low discounted prices in the socialized medicine countries that
Okay.
we are currently experiencing. And so they really have no way to say as a group of manufacturers, we're not going to sell it at this ridiculous price. That would be collusion. Well, that's a major problem, a major disadvantage to US based pharmaceutical manufacturers. I mean, imagine if you had a business that manufactured clothing here in the United States, and you were told by Belgium and the UK and France and Spain. Well, we don't care if it costs you $10 to manufacture this pair of trousers, and you're going to sell it to us for $3 US, and there's nothing you can do about it. If you want to sell in our market, you're going to have to do it like this. That's
It-
unfair. It
It's
doesn't
unfair.
allow the business to recover its costs. And
Absolutely.
that's a major problem. Another major problem is the high tax rates in other countries relative to ours. When you look at many of these countries with so-called free healthcare systems to their citizens, the
Mhm.
citizens are actually paying a great deal for them.
Oh,
In fact, the United States has an average tax rate of about 30% total income, Social
mhm.
Security, whatnot, on an
Right.
average wage. In
Mhm.
European countries, it can be twice that
Yes.
high.
Horrible. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. And the other thing that socialized medicine countries pay dearly for is the quality of care.
Yes, that's a question that I had for you, Pete. Yes,
Yes.
because everybody, some people, people sometimes are upset because in reality, middle income people in the United States, we end up paying more. Because if you're really up there, you have the money, and if you're very poor, you have Medicaid. So the middle income families are the ones that hurt most.
Yeah.
So a lot of friends of mine, a lot of people, qualified people say because we should have socialized medicine like France, like Spain, like this and that. So tell me your opinion about that. Is that true or is that wrong?
It's absolutely a terrible
I
situation
thought
when you look at the cost of the care. It is not much cheaper at all. In fact, it can be more expensive in many places than in the United States. One of the reasons we perceive prescription drug costs to be so high is because they are among the few products, the few services in healthcare that we pay a lot for out of pocket. When you go to a hospital or a doctor, the copayment on your insurance might be 10, 20, $50 at the most. If you need a prescription drug that is new to the market, you might be paying more than that out of your pocket. And the fact is, if you look at all healthcare expenditures, prescription drugs account for between 10 and 12% on average of everything we spend as Americans on healthcare every year. The majority of things that we spend on in healthcare are doctor visits and
Mhm.
hospital visits, but those are often hidden in our insurance bills. We are not required at the cash register to pay up front for those things in the way we are for many prescriptions. And so we often have the perception that prescription drugs are the biggest healthcare cost we face and we can't afford it. In most cases, those Americans who pay more than 500 out of pocket a year
Mhm.
have it a very small percentage of our population that's experiencing that. Something like less than 15% of all Medicare patients, less than 7% of all patients with private insurance. Now, if you're among them, that's a hard thing to
Yeah.
afford. But the fortunate thing here is that the problem is not so widespread that we can't solve it. There are policies that we can enact to help solve it.
And you see that it's still important for us in the United States to lead the world in pharmaceutical innovation, obviously, right? Because if it weren't for the drugs that the US develops, I don't think any other country in the world is doing what the United States does. So it's a sacrifice, it's something that we have to do, but it benefits our people, right?
Yes, it
Yeah.
absolutely does. And nowhere else in the world do we have an environment where almost 90% of all blockbuster drugs developed around the world are available here in America. In the UK, it's less than half of the drugs available to their patients. In Canada
Oh,
and Australia, less than a quarter.
and Pete,
We have,
Pete, the life expectancy since you say that they don't have those drugs, we in the United States versus these countries that don't have access to like the medications that we have access to because of the
Yeah,
socialized medicine, takes forever, so their life expectancy is less than the
that's
US
right.
and
Much
Europe.
less, much
Much less,
less.
much less.
And it's for all kinds of medical procedures. In Canada, for example, you can wait up to a year to see an orthopedic specialist to get
Wow.
surgery.
Whoa.
Imagine having to live with that. In England, 1 out of every 10 adults has performed their own dental procedures.
What?
I mean, so
Whoa.
it's not just a
No,
shortage of prescription drugs, it's a shortage of healthcare
healthcare.
overall. And that is a
That should not
situation.
happen. That should not
That's
happen.
right.
I agree.
It,
No, it should not happen. No, no, no.
it should not happen. And so we have not only that kind of access to blockbuster drugs, we also have more than 90% of prescriptions being filled by generics, the low cost,
Which is
non-branded
good the
version.
same, I think, right? Give me your honest opinion. I think the generic is fine. Because they always tell me, would you like the generic if it's a lot less inexpensive? I always say, yeah, generic. So what is your
That's right.
opinion about generic?
Yeah,
The same, right?
absolutely, I do.
Absolutely.
And there are some prescriptions that I currently take that no longer have a branded equivalent. You can only get generics. And so,
Exactly, right. You're right. I agree. And
yeah,
they're
and
perfectly
so
fine.
it's
Exactly.
very worrisome to see, for example, tariff policies that would restrict the importation of certain ingredients for these drugs. We need to be making more of them here, but if you do tariffs up front, you're endangering the supplies that can allow American-based firms to manufacture here and sell here.
Oh, I didn't
Uh,
know that. Oh, explain that. Oh, Pete, you see,
that could
that's
be,
very interesting. I hadn't
yes,
thought of it. No one's mentioned that before. So I think what you're saying is very interesting, and for the
yeah,
viewers to know.
yeah. Folks need to know that it seems like a good idea to bring as many prescription drug manufacturing, both blockbuster drugs and generics, to the United States. We should be doing that. I agree completely. Tax policy is an important component of that, making sure that research and development and other activities are not punished by our tax system. And in fact, the passage in 2025 of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act does a lot of that, and it has encouraged more than $500 billion worth of pharmaceutical investment commitments. That's the smart way to do it. The not so smart way to do it is to say, well, any imported foreign medicines or foreign ingredients for medicines, we're going to immediately slap a 100% tariff on them and make sure that U.S. onshoring occurs. You can't do that with the snap of a finger and expect shortages to not occur, which could be very dangerous for
Yes,
patients. The
yes,
way to do this is gradually to allow the investment to take place so that we build more plants here, build more capacity here,
I
and
agree.
that way we will have onshoring in a sensible manner.
And we will preserve the leadership of the US in pharmaceutical innovation, right? We need to still
Exactly.
be ahead of the game because thanks
Yes.
to all the drugs that the US um that these scientists come up with are the ones that are making life longer for people, like for example with cancer. Like look at all these people that survive with cancer with their chemo or whatever, be it as it may, but there's people that live 10, 20 years with
Yeah,
that I don't think that'll be the case in other countries of the world. So
that's right.
innovation has helped preserve life, not only quality of life, but life itself. And those people that are suffering from those illnesses are able to be with their families, with their husbands and children and wives and grandchildren. And that just makes a big difference when you have a loved one who needs to, you want those people to be alive. I mean, I lost my parent, my mother 30 years ago. So had there been some other type of drug, maybe she would have lived until maybe at least 5 years from now. I mean, 5 years ago, and then she would have been able to see her granddaughter and all of that and her grandchildren. So in reality, when you see all of this and you look at it, you open your eyes and you in the scale and you say, wow, you know what? It's worth it that we sacrifice, I mean, the dollars, whatever, but we're helping not only our citizens of the United States, but we're helping the world. So,
Yes.
yes, we are helping the world. So, in reality, I'm so glad that you're talking about this because usually nobody talks about this. This
Yes.
topic is interesting. So, your opinion is that we have to preserve the U.S. leadership in innovation in pharmaceutical.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And it's a matter of economics too. When you look at the development of drugs and how they help to control other types of healthcare costs. If you can take a prescription that keeps you out of the hospital, keeps you from having to have surgeries, over the long
Yes.
run, you're saving money. That's been happening across many categories of healthcare. The second generation of cardiac drugs that were
Yes.
introduced in the late 1990s, early
Correct.
2000s, they have done what we want to do, which is control the cost growth in Medicare and Medicaid. It led to a 14% slowdown in cost growth in
Mm,
Medicare during the
right.
2000s. Look at the anti-obesity
Oh,
medications.
yes. Tell me about that. Yes.
There
Yes.
was
P,
a
yes.
recent study among employers, 139,000 employees. This was conducted by Aon, which is a very respected
Yes.
research firm. And they determined that there are very fast results in terms of reduction in employer costs for healthcare by employees who take anti-obesity medications. In fact, the cost growth for cardiac cases, pneumonia,
Yes.
diabetes,
Diabetes. Yes.
osteoarthritis
Yes.
slowed by more than half. So these medications can have very quick impacts on
In
the
people's health.
overhead that employers as well as patients
Mm,
face. And, that adds to the productivity of our economy when we can keep people healthier
healthy.
and working longer.
It's amazing. I have friends that were so overweight, and now you see them and they feel so much better because when you're overweight, you have this, you're carrying this weight, not only your muscles, your bones, like you said, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. So all of this starts, you like your body's like going through like a rehab itself, and you're becoming like the person that you really want to be, the
Yeah.
active person, yeah, the active, healthy, alert, and just because people who are obese, you see them, they're dragging their lives. And I've seen too many people that are friends of mine, they lost 60, 70 pounds and they look so well. You say, wow. So that has been like a miracle drug, has been great.
Exactly.
And it's thanks to the innovation and just what we have here in the United States, which is the best country in the world for so many
Yeah.
things, not only for medicine. So, Pete, anything else that we should include because this is a business minute? Well,
Well,
usually like 10 minutes. Yeah,
just that if you're a business owner, you can, of course, care about your employees and their well-being and their health, but look at it from an economic perspective.
right.
Prescription drugs cost sometimes a great deal for a small percentage of the population, but they are not the primary contributor to overall healthcare cost growth. That's doctors and hospitals. We
Exactly.
must find a way to bring that under control while investing carefully in prescription drugs to deliver those long-term savings I've been talking about. That means consistent tax policy that allows for investment in research and development. It means reforms like the No Upcode Act that will allow insurance claims through Medicare to be standardized across the board. That saves billions of dollars. You have to do what's called site neutrality so that Medicare pays the same reimbursement whether a procedure is done in a hospital or a doctor's office, saving
Exactly.
lots of money up front so we can continue investing in prescription drugs. And the dividends are incredible. I mean, I've experienced this personally. My father and I both have the same bad arteries, severe coronary artery disease. He did not have access to the prescription drugs that I do. He got a full coronary bypass at age 50. It took him almost 3 months to recover before he could even consider going back to work.
My father
I've
had
never,
that, the five bypasses. He had
that's
that.
right. And
Yeah.
I've never had to have that because of the prescriptions I've been able to take. My procedure was a simple stent in my artery. I was working within 3 hours
Whoa.
of having that
Right.
procedure
Oh,
instead of 3 months. And yet it still takes 3 years to do a clinical trial for certain types of medications. We have to remember this rule of three. We are advancing so much, and yet public policy needs to advance too. We have got to clear away the regulatory roadblocks for both brands and generics and the new biosimilars. China is catching up to us and has even exceeded us in pharmaceutical development.
Really?
They're actually doing better in
I
early
didn't
stage drug
know.
trials now. We can't allow that to happen. We must maintain that
Of
leadership.
course, we must, exactly. And that's what we need to do, send out to our members, what we as communities should do to support this important mission of the NTU, what you're doing. And I think it's just fabulous the way the passion that you have and the way you fight for this because you feel it. And I feel it too because I've seen, I mean, the job and the drugs that we have in the United States, and I've seen people taking those drugs, how they've lived longer and with the medications. And regardless of the fact that they're more expensive, but the fact that we have them here and we're able to access those drugs makes a heck of a difference and extends people's lives for the ones that we love and for everybody in general. So P, I mean, I want to bring you to Miami. I'm gonna send you a ticket because I need to have you yeah, like in a room with all of our members just to hear what you said today to me because it's so important for people to understand because people complain it's so expensive in Europe we should have nationalized medicine. I said, what are people talking about? It makes no sense. So it's so important to information is power, right? And if you provide information to the general public on people who are experts such as yourself, it just changes people's opinions and people's lives. So I thank you so much. I'm honored to have you today on a Business Minute with Lily Lopez, and we're looking forward to seeing you in Miami sometime very soon.
It
Thank you
will
for
be my
tuning in,
pleasure.
everyone, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks for tuning in once again to a Business Minute with Lily Lopez.